this Chumash. Despite my extended browsing through the Chumash here, I just want to talk briefly, because we've got a lot to do today. The kids are going to come in and we're going to bless them on their first day of learning Torah for the year. And what I want us to look at is just one verse, if you don't mind. And so I want you to open up, if you can, to page 1498. So what we're talking about is Deuteronomy 23, verse 25. That's page 1498 in the Chumash, chapter 23, verse 25. When you enter your neighbor's vineyard and you may eat your fill of the grapes, as many as you want. In Hebrew, let me just see where we're looking for here. There we are. Kinafshecha saveacha. So so that your soul be satisfied, but you must not put any in your vessel. This is sort of a weird translation, but it means in your bag. When you find yourself amidst your neighbor's standing grain, you may pluck ears of grain with your hand, but you must not put a sickle to your neighbor's grain. I love this verse, and I think it's absolutely like this beautiful idea that like as you're going through even property that's not your own and you see ripe grapes, like go and eat, but not too much. The rabbis lose their mind over this, probably because they own farms. And they were very, by the way, I looked this up under OSHA requirements because I wanted to know, are people working in agricultural fields allowed to eat? Like, is there any protection for whether or not they can eat the food as they're harvesting it? And the answer is, hell no. But theoretically, mostly because of OSHA rules as opposed to property rules. And also that stuff is largely spayed with pesticides, so I'm not 100% sure that you want to be putting it in your mouth anyways. But it's really interesting to me because like as I was studying this beautiful, straightforward, values-driven verse in the Torah, and then I looked at the earliest midrash on Sefer Devarim that there is, and it was like, let me restrict this as much as possible. So there was a little bit of anxiety about that, and I sort of wonder what the source of the anxiety was. I wonder what you think. We're not going to I wanted to do a full conversation just because of time. I don't think we're going to do it. What do you think the source of the anxiety is? Why not put the Torah in place just as is? If you say something out loud, I will repeat it back to everyone. Now, better yet, by the way, when we're thinking about this particular verse from the Torah, the problem for me is that I have recently sold my farm and am no longer an owner of agricultural property. I suspect many of you are the same way. And so one of the things I was wondering about is how does this, like, what's the analog, what's the parallel for this verse in our lives? Oh, Jamie, you got an answer. Yeah.
I thought of it right away. It's like when you go to pick your own place, pick your own farm.
Yeah.
Like Robert or said, and there are all these rules about whether you can, you weigh everything that you carry out, right?
Yeah.
So different places have different rules, and it's been a while, but that's the first thing that came to mind.
Jamie's saying it's like the pick your own place. I suspect they would frown upon eating a few, but who knows if they can police it. Yeah, but people do it. All right. Jamie has admitted to her criminality. We can move on. Yes, Lauren.
Well, I think it's about generosity.
Think it's about generosity?
Limits of generosity.
Yeah, limits of generosity.
Like we want value-wise to be generous and to support people and to offer our grapes and our whatever.
We want value. Okay.
People, well, we also don't want to be taken advantage of. And
We want to be generous, but we don't want to be taken advantage of.
ongoing dynamic.
Yeah. Danny?
The commentators emphasize that it's restricted, as you said, by saying it's if you're a laborer, then you can.
It's if you're a laborer, and it's also only during the time of,
But I
yeah.
think that reflects this sort of idea that property is an abstraction that means something if you're the landowner, but doesn't quite mean the same thing viscerally if you're working. You have a different relationship to
So Danny's saying that property means something, especially an abstraction that means something if you're a landowner, less so if you're the worker. You know what I thought of, by the way? All-you-can-eat sushi bars. I was a big purveyor of those. Yeah, Robin? Yeah.
So I just find it interesting that it tells you what you're able to do in your neighbor's yard, but it's not like when somebody's in your yard, they can eat whatever they want, they just shouldn't put it in their dust.
When someone's in your yard, they can eat whatever they want. That's true. And that's sort of the source of the... You mean you're interested by the way that who it's speaking to?
Yes, that it's speaking to like what your rights are when you visit somebody else, but not how you should like view your guests and your space.
Right. So Robin's pointing out that this is meant to the laborers and not to the landowners. Luckily, there are a lot of verses to the landowners that have to talk about both in this parsha and beyond. They're actually spread all over the book of Deuteronomy. They talk about the fact that if you drop a sheaf of grain while you're harvesting it, you can't pick it up again. And if you forget to get olives off the bough of a tree, I think that one's in this parsha, you can't go back and pluck them again. And there's a whole set of things direct to the landowner that are less about the laborers and more about the poor, who you're leaving that for. Judy? Yeah.
I read recently about someone who had a little free library in their yard.
Yeah.
And a neighbor would come, every time there were books in there, come and take them all out and sell them. The neighbor would essentially harvest the books for resale, you know, and
She says that she had a neighbor who had a little library.
I read about this.
Oh, you read about it, about someone who had one of those little lending libraries and a neighbor who would take every book in there and sell it for like $3.50. Like, what was the total profit of that particular? Yeah, Alex. Yeah.
My thoughts were along the same lines, is that, you know, you can go into your neighbor's field and you can harvest for personal consumption, but you can't sell fruits, grapes. You know?
Right, which is what people do try to do. Yeah, you can go to your neighbor's field, but you can't sell the grapes. I saw one hand up here. Yes, Steve.
I mean, you're all you can eat metaphor just reminded me. You can have it for one place, all you can eat, but you can't have a doggy bag and take it home.
Yeah, that's what I was saying about the all you can eat. Yeah, Steph.
I don't know, there's something about that, some humility in the fact that, what I hear is, it's also, maybe somebody, had to work the fields for the produce that.
These are the people working the fields for the produce to exist. It's directed towards them. Yeah.
But there's also this gift from God, from whatever, that this fruit exists. And so, kind of sharing the bounty of that.
Sharing it, okay.
Giving a little, right, but it doesn't mean you, give everything.
Giving a little means you don't give everything. Thank you. I'm going to stop there if that's okay. Steph said there's both the aspect of the laborer who works the field to gather the produce because that's their job, and also the bounty of God or whatever, which was how it was said. Very adat shalom. And right, because bounty is shared in that kind of way, right? These are not things that can be owned by one individual person. I was also thinking of things like loitering laws, which are often weaponized against homeless people, and sort of and the way that it can go both ways. Like on the one hand, it's actually those little bumps or spikes that people put on the ground or on benches in order to keep people away are the most horrible things I've ever seen in my entire life. And also, if there's no sort of communal expectation about where people can sit and what they can be, and where they can be, things very easily get out of hand. So that seems to be what the Torah is trying to do here. I wanted to share with you a commentary, again from the Sfat Emet. Forgive me for using the same commentator twice. I promise you it was not because it was convenient, but rather I just liked his stuff best. This is the Rabbi of Ger, the Sfat Emet. And what he says is, he takes a sharp turn with an unexpected place with this. He says this is actually a metaphor for understanding what doing good work in the world is all about. And what he says is, to everything that you do that is worthwhile, he phrases it in terms of avodat Hashem, the service of God. But he's very explicit because for a rabbi, for a rabbi of his generation, that's a metaphor for every mitzvah that you will ever do. It's not just coming to synagogue and praying, it's anything that's done in holiness. That includes what you might eat on Shabbat or the way that you give to the poor. That includes the way that you treat your family and also the way that you treat your employers, your boss. That includes the entire Jewish corpus. So you have to understand that Avodat Hashem, the service of God, is shorthand for the entirety of the system of mitzvot. You with me so far? And what he says is, what it's letting you know is that there's a piece of it that if you do it with a whole heart and a clear mind and a good conscience and the best you can to the best of your ability, he says there is a way that you will eat from that experience in the moment. He says that essentially doing the right thing, doing good, promulgating mitzvot in this world, as you're doing the mitzvah, the metaphor is to eat from the grapes. You're in the field eating from the grapes. And then he says the craziest thing. He says, but you can't take it with you. He's like anti-TED Talk. He thinks that the idea of sort of packaging the experience for the consumption of other people afterwards is not possible. He says, only in the moment, I'm translating freely from here, only in the moment of doing will you understand and will you benefit. And after that, it's kind of gone. You cannot put it in your vessel to carry with you afterwards. And I find this to be sort of a shocking idea that I'm also very attracted to at the same time. We do live in a culture in which every good thing is now put on TikTok. One of my favorite TikToks are the people who cut other people's lawns for free. This is a whole genre of TikTok now. One guy started it. He was a landscaper, and he wanted to do some good and also make a name for himself. And now there are thousands of landscapers across the United States cutting other people's gardens for free for clout, so that for views, right? So it's sort of a bizarre thing if you think about it. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I don't, if that's a way that you're going to promote your business, we as the Jewish people are not above a little bit of good marketing. We're not. And so the idea of doing good and like receiving a little bit of benefit from doing good, I know that everyone looks at Maimonides' scale about how you should give tzedakah, and the top level is you should give it of anonymous me. Pashnisht, get over it. It's not really like that. And remember, there are 9 other rungs on the scale before you get to the 10th rung. The idea that you do good and you get a good name for doing good, we're comfortable with this as the Jewish people. The truly righteous give anonymously. God bless them. But I think it's just very interesting that the Sfat Emet sort of says, in every mitzvahdic experience, in every moment of a mitzvah, there is something that is there for you that cannot be expressed to others. And to this idea, by the way, what we call this idea is that a person should do a mitzvah lishma, in and of itself, for its own sake. When Keats said, a thing of beauty is a joy forever, he meant that beautiful things are lishma. They exist in and of themselves. I'm fascinated by this idea. As we sort of step into the high holidays, I think I might even speak, in certain ways, more about it in depth when we talk on Rosh Hashanah. But one of the things that I want us to also imbibe is that not every good thing that we do in the world is as a lesson for the other people around us, because there's an arrogance to that. And rather, there is truly a value of committing ourselves to the work of mitzvah simply because in the moment of mitzvah, the grapes are sweet and we get to eat and then go. Shabbat shalom.